After owning and building the world's cheapest and unique rat-look Testarossa for the past 10 years, it's had relatively few problems, other than a hot start issue and a scary moment where the belt snapped in a tunnel, which fortunately turned out to be the alternator and not the cam belts. This £16,000 Ferrari has been surprisingly good. It's been bags of fun and certainly one that draws a lot of attention.
It's still a lot of fun for a 40-year-old car.
But over the last few weeks, it's developed a starting problem and it's got progressively worse and worse. Today though, we are going to fix that and bring back the rat. Now in the last video, I ordered up some spark plugs for the Testarossa and I suspected that they potentially could be fake. You guys took to the comments in your masses, so thank you very much for that. But basically, we didn't really get a clear, concise answer whether they were fake or not. We had everything from people saying, nope, definitely not. People saying 100% they're fake, replace them. And then we had people even telling me that they'd previously contacted NGK, the makers of the spark plugs, to say that they also suspected that they'd been sent some fake plugs before. And NGK basically denied all knowledge that there are any fake plugs out there that exist. So they have got their head firmly buried in the sand over this one. Now I had some great troubleshooting suggestions from you guys, which is lovely because it makes me feel like you're part of this. We're going to run through some of those with the simple ones to start with. Firstly, we're going to change the plugs from one bank to the other. I like removing these connectors. They make a very satisfying pop. All right, let's swap them over. So what I'm going to do, this was another suggestion from you guys, is just double check all the gaps on the plugs. Why do I feel like Freddy Krueger? They should be 0.25. So what we've got here is our feeler gauge, and we've got a 0.12 and a 0.13. So combined they're 0.25. And if we check that on our plug, we've got a nice little bite there. Just perfect. So that one's okay. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch over 2 plugs at a time. So we're going to start with the back 2 and work our way forward 2 at a time. And then in between, we're going to start the car and I'm going to test it to see if it changes. So effectively, we'll change all 6, but at any point we might find that we've got a problem. We're going to switch those 2 over. Now the other thing I'm going to do at the same time is swap over these extenders, these spark plug extenders, because they are, well, they were used heavily in all Ferraris of the 80s era, and well, they're notorious for going brittle and causing problems. So we're going to switch over those 2 at a time, and then if we know we've got a problem at any stage during those 6 tests, well, we've narrowed it down to either the extender or the spark plug. Like a horror movie, the amount of smoke that comes out of this car. All right, so now we've changed all 6 plugs between both banks. So effectively, we've got the new plugs in the old bank and vice versa, and it's made no difference at all. As you can hear, it's still spluttering and misfiring down there. So basically, we can rule out plugs. Now, we all love gadgets, especially when it's a game changer. As you know, I'm extremely disorganized when it comes to serializing my projects on YouTube, and that definitely comes from being dyslexic. This wafer-thin device packs a mighty punch. This is the PLAUD Note. It's an incredible invention which really saves me time and money and reframe my entire working day. It can capture, transcribe and summarize ideas into bullet points, actionable to-do lists, and even mind maps. I'm always making notes on my phone, and of course, like me, those notes are disorganized and I'm often way too messy to type on my phone. With the PLAUD Note though, it's hands-free, it's hassle-free. I use my PLAUD Note on the way to work every day when I come up with some random video ideas, and it's brilliant. And I can even ask AI when I need a little extra help, from anything like the best way to clean a spark plug to the best suggestions on a video title. And I even use it for auto cue. If there's anything I need to read out while I'm filming, it's fantastic. I can simply snap it on the back of my phone like this, and at 30 grams it's small and unintrusive, and I just love the professional looking design. It makes sure that all my important information and ideas are all recorded. It's like having my own personal assistant in the garage with me. Did you get that?
Say that last bit again.
It's got a long battery life, there's 40 days of standby power and 64 gigabytes of storage. So unlike my mobile phone, I don't need to worry about it running out of battery or memory. You've got all day recording and it's simple to charge. There's one press recording for meetings and calls, and it's so simple. The MagSafe is magnetically attached to the phone in a very low key and subtle way. It's by far my favorite and most recommended gadget of 2025. You can grab one yourself. Simply click on the links in the description to enjoy the Prime Day limited offer of 20% off. Oh, and guess what? If you drop a comment telling me exactly why you need a PLAUD Note, well, you might just be in with a chance of winning one yourself. You get me? I don't actually need you anymore. What? I've got the PLAUD Note. So if it's not our spark plugs, even if they are fake, well, they're behaving exactly the same on the different banks. So we can rule out the plugs, and we know from the previous tests, it's not the coils, it's not the distributor caps, and it's not the wires, because we did our little light test. We know we're getting spark coming through. So if it's not the plugs, if it's not our firing, what is it? Well, in order to have an engine running, we need spark, we need air, and we're pretty sure we've got the air here at the moment. We'll have a quick look in here to make sure nothing's blocked. But other than that, what else have we got? Well, we need fuel as well. And I've been thinking for a little while now, maybe this is not spark, maybe this is fuel. And a few of you even said that in the comments. So we're going to start looking at the fuel system. Now, the great thing about the Testarossa, which is also a complex thing, is that basically we've got two 6-cylinder engines here. And so everything's doubled up. We've got the two fuel metering units. We've got two of everything. So it means that I can swap things across. And we've been doing that just to verify some bits along the way. What we're going to do now, though, is look at the fuel pumps, which are underneath the car. And again, there's two, one that feeds each bank. But before we do that, we're going to head to the front of the car. Now in here, well, first of all, we've got our typical Ratarossa bonnet stay, because the little shocks don't work. This is actually a breaker bar, a massive breaker bar, that I broke the breaker bar trying to get the wheels off of this car once. So now it's a front bonnet stay. Anyway, aside that, we also have a little flap here, and in there we have the fuse board, which you saw in the last video. We did a repair on the starter motor. Now these things, as I've mentioned before, are notorious. Ferrari fuse boards of the 80s are kind of the first generation of this type of fuse board, and well, they all suffer. Everything from Testarossas, Mondials, F40s, they all have a very common problem. And I suspect this one is no different from any other one. And I'll tell you why, because I've already replaced the fuse board on this car once before. This was the old one, and these things are super expensive. Now this had problems with various other systems around the car, but not the engine. So this had problems with things like the indicators, the wipers, and some of the electronics in the cabin, and things like the lights. But from memory, we didn't have any issues with the engine. So it might be that I swapped this over at some point just to see if it makes any difference there. But for the time being, we're going to do some pretty basic investigation on the connectors, which also suffer. Now, something else that I'm testing on this car that, again, is quite notorious on the 80s cars is some of the relays. Now, we've got one out here for the cold start system, and I've got this little tester, really, really handy. That, I think it was like 10, 15 pounds maximum, and that just plugs in on the battery there. And then we just plug our relay in, press the test button, and that one is good. So I'm going to run through a few more of those. Try these two here, and therefore our left and right fuel pumps. Okay, so our fuel pump. Oh, not passing. Oh, hang on. Hang on. Let's try that again. Yeah, okay, that's me being a dog. I had it on 4-pin instead of 5-pin. So that is working okay. Let's try the other one. Thought I had something there, but nope. Me just being stupid. Now there's one specific connector that I want to look at on this fuse board, and it's this lower one down here. Because on there's two brown wires that feed both of the fuel pumps. So we're going to pop that out and have a look at it. And there you go. That is what I'm talking about. You can see that that is having a bit of an overload on the system. Now, those two brown wires feed both of the fuel pumps, so we're getting too much of a draw on one of them. So have we got ourselves a faulty fuel pump? Now this doesn't surprise me. This is very typical on Ferraris of this era. You do see this quite commonly on the fuel pumps, which take quite a draw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at that. But first of all, let's do something very, very simple. Now that feeds one fuel pump, that one feeds the other. So what we're going to do is those wires are going to go to the pump. So what I'm going to do is go underneath the car, switch the wires on the fuel pumps, and what that should do effectively is feed the different banks. So instead of that fuel pump, let's say, feeding that bank, it's going to then feed that bank. So our problem with the misfire down here should then change to the other bank. So we've got the two fuel pumps that take their feed from the two brown wires on the fuse board and then supply each individual bank. They run up to the fuel metering units, which supply either side of the engine. So we're going to switch over the wires and see if it changes the fault. Okay, so it's not the fuel pumps because that's made no difference at all. And in theory, we can also rule out anything coming from the fuse board or the wiring because that's feeding the pumps. And again, it's made no difference. So what we need to check next is from the pumps up to the fuel metering units. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go past that, follow the fuel system up to the engine. So first of all, it runs from the pumps through a fuel filter. Now we're going to be changing those when we do the big cam belt service on this. So we can't rule them out, but we can look beyond that. So what's the next point in the fuel distribution? The lines run up and they come into these, the fuel metering units. And what we're going to do now is a real simple check to make sure on both sides we're actually getting fuel. That way we can rule out the filters for now. They might be a little bit dirty, but as long as we're getting enough fuel, we should be okay. Okay, so here is the plan. It's a simple test, a little bit sketchy, and I don't really recommend doing this one at home. But here is the plan. We are going to crack open this line here. This is the feed from the fuel pump, and the same on this metering unit over here. So that is coming from the fuel pump. If we crack open that 12mm nut there, just slightly, turn the ignition on so the fuel pump fires into life very, very briefly. We should see fuel weeping from here, or actually it should be spraying because it's under quite a high pressure. Same with that one, and that's going to verify we're getting fuel up here to the metering units. So here we go. We'll start with this one. Oh, crack it open a little bit. I've already felt a little bit of fuel there, so just a tad. That's a good sign, but let's see what happens. Now, we might get a big gush of fuel coming out here. Kind of hoping that is the case. Ready? Gonna go on and off very quickly. Whoa, see that? Hopefully that came out on camera. So that side, which is this bank here, which is our suspect really good bank, that's working totally fine. You saw the amount of fuel coming out of there. All right, let's crack that back up. Bit tight here. All right, ready? Okay, I'm not getting a weep of fuel there, which I did get on the other side. Let's see if this comes out. Ready? Whoa! Proper fuel shower there. Hence, I wouldn't recommend doing this one at home. But there you go. Both sides are getting fuel from the fuel pumps up to the metering unit. So we can rule that out and move on to the next test. Next up, I'm opening up all of the air box here. We're going to check the filters, make sure there's nothing blocked, and just inspect all of this going to the fuel metering units. Now, I don't ever remember changing the air filter on this. It might have happened 10 years ago when I bought the car. Probably did. I did service some bits on it then. But it's done a few miles, not many since then. And, well, it's probably overdue being changed. Okay, so that's the cover. Okay. Well, we've got a bit of debris there. Service kit. Oh, look at that. We've got all that there as well. Yeah, that all looks pretty clean. So, just vacuum all of that out. And obviously we're going to change that when we do the cam belts and get this engine out. Give it a little vacuum, bit of a cheat to start with. Okay, what I want to do next is all to do with the fuel metering units. As you can hear, it's still missing down there. What we're going to do is we are still working on this bank. So we're going to play around and adjust the metering unit on this side. Right, I'm just going to turn that off so we can explain. So what we have down here is a little adjustment screw. So there's one for obviously that metering unit, and there's another one for this one down there. Okay, so we're pretty sure our problem is on this bank, because this is where we've got all our misfire and spluttering. What we're going to do is adjust that screw very slightly, small increments, to see how that behaves with our fuel metering unit. Now, if you remember on the BBI, when we had, well, it's got a very similar system, and we had both of the fuel metering units rebuilt by Martin at Grey Goose. And he's done a fantastic job, and I learned a lot from him. So it might be we need to have these rebuilt, but first of all, let's see if we can make some difference by just tuning it very slightly. Let's fire it up. Now, by turning that screw, it's going to be adjusting this plate here. So if I just do it by hand first of all, by pushing that down very slightly, listen to the car. You don't want to go down too much, because it'll do this and just cut. So it's that fine tuning. To get it right. So what I'm going to use is this. We're going to stick that down in there. I'll just do this without the camera on, and we're just going to very carefully turn it clockwise to adjust it and richen it up very slightly. So I'm going to do that with the engine running. I want you to listen to the engine. Now you saw when I pushed the plate down here, it had a big effect. Now what we're going to do now is try and adjust it to do exactly the same without me pressing it. And at the same time, we're going to keep an eye on the tachometer over here and just see where it's idling. Let's fire it up. Still lumpy. Now that's where we were before I even started messing around with it. You can hear it's really missing. So I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. Now also by me pressing it, you've got to be careful because if I press it, it's pressing this. So you just want to adjust the screw. You can hear it's getting better. Still happening a bit. Okay. That's much better. Much better. Really good. Really good. Really, really good. Now the other thing is we need to do this when the engine is warm, and well, it is, I think, warm enough. I'm going to just leave it running for a couple of minutes just to make sure. Let's see how it sounds if I give it a little bit of throttle. Alright, so the Testarossa is back. It's sounding fantastic. I'm going to get it outside and give it a little drive now. Now I've got to say a massive thanks to my mate Mohammed, who really helped me out with this one. I was super stuck and he told me how to go through that procedure. Now the other thing he's recommended is this. It's a colour tune. Now this plugs into the spark plug hole. It's got a little light on it. And when you get the mixture right, now obviously that's what we've been doing with the fuel metering units over there. When you get the mixture right, the colour will change on this little light here. Now the only problem is I need an adapter to get this to fit to the Testarossa. So I can't do that right now, but that's something that we are going to cover. For the time being though, certainly sounds good. So let's get it outside and just give it a little test. Now I'm not going to take any risks. I'm going to just quickly pop this back together. sun's out, the rat's out. Let's see if we fixed it. It's a heck of a lot better. Got a tiny, tiny little misfire. But that is, I want to say, 95% better than it was. We need to, I've got a car in front of me, I need to take it for a little bit of a flat up there. Let's create some space. Here we go. Second gear. This car is just so good. So good. Okay, it looks like we've finally fixed the misfire on the Testarossa. It sounds phenomenal now. We're back in business. But remember, I think that was not the only problem with this car. The misfire, but also we had the cold start issue where we had a big cloud of smoke, and actually it's progressively got very, very bad to the point where it's really, really difficult to start this car. Now, while we're waiting for that engine to cool down, I'm going to do something else. It's a good opportunity to have a look at this fuse board and see if there's anything obvious going on with it. First thing I'm going to do is take note of all of these relays, where they all sit, and also all the fuses. We've got to take them all out in order to strip it apart. So I'm just going to take all the fuses out and lay them how they come out the board. I'm then going to do the same thing with all the relays. Now to get into this board, it looks like we just have to remove these 5 screws on the back. And there we go, that is the back side of it. Now let's have a quick look. So our connectors, look, you can see here, we've already got a little bit of burning right down there, which I suspect, from memory, that is the fuel pumps. So anything else here? A few little dry joints. What I'm going to do though is, if I remove a few more of these screws, we can take this whole board out and just inspect it fully. Now, I'm no expert, but obviously that does not look good. The other side, all the pins, they all look good. They all look okay. Now the other thing I was looking for is things like this, where it started to split slightly, the board, the different layers, and then we've got something that's just come off here, so that's kind of come apart, but there's nothing there that's going to be any kind of problem. And again, this little bit here, you can see, have we got any dry joints? There looks like quite a few there that could be resoldered. Now, those two are the main concerns. There's a couple here as well. Obviously, it is working at the moment. For how long, I don't know. There are options. Really, you don't want to try and buy another new one. It's probably around about £10,000 if you could get one from Ferrari. There's a few second-hand ones, some of them 5,000, something like that, and most of them are all going to run the risk of having this issue. So there are a couple of aftermarket companies that I know of, maybe some more, that reproduce these boards to a modern standard, and that's where we're going to go with this one. Just not right now, because those in themselves are about £1,000 just for the board, and well, it's £1,000 that I don't want to spend on the Testarossa right now, because that £1,000 can go to buy parts for something a little bit more special. Anyway, we're going to run with this. I'm going to keep an eye on it very closely over the next couple of months and see how we progress. But the overall goal is we're going to be replacing this board with a new modern one. All right, so we're back on the car. The engine is completely cold. Let's fire it up and see if we've improved the cold start situation. Here we go.
Guys, I just watched the footage back. I'm genuinely shocked. There is hardly any whisper of smoke on that. That's better than most Testarossas. So, and that's honestly stone cold. Stone cold. I'm going to check it again when it's cooled down a few more times, but sometimes you win. Something else I just wanted to touch base on, and that was from the previous video when I mentioned the next thing on the Testarossa is to do the engine out, which means I need to take the whole body off, get the rear cradle, the rear subframe and the engine all out to work on it for the biggie, the cam belt service. Now, I did point out something really stupid in the last video, and you were all very quick to correct me, that I didn't want to sacrifice a car space in here with a big 4-post or 2-post lift. Rightly so. You guys mentioned that if we had a 4-post or a 2-post lift, we can leave one car on the ramp and park one underneath, so we don't lose anything. So, and actually, if we've got a slimmer lift, we actually could potentially gain a car parking space, which is great. So I'm in talks. I'm trying to figure out. Still haven't come to any kind of decision on that one, but it does need to happen very soon because the cam belts are long overdue on the Rat, and now we've got it to a point where I'm really happy that the engine is all running. I didn't want to take all the belts and do the service, because if we put it back together and had a problem, then we could have been chasing our tail. So it's all running. Now's the time. We can take it all apart and give it a great service. Well guys, that is it for today's video. I am super happy to have the Ratarossa back on the road, sounding phenomenal. This has to be one of the nicest sounding Testarossas on the planet. Now, I've got to say a massive thanks to all of you who took the time to leave comments and suggestions in the last video. It really helps. And obviously, my mate Mohammed down in Saudi, who actually figured this one out. We went through all the other stuff, still couldn't get it working. He goes, okay, maybe you've got a fuel mixture problem. It's something as simple as that that can cause a major problem on a car like this. Just a little tweak. That's all it took in the end. Anyway, guys, that's not it for the Testarossa. We've got obviously the cam belts and a few other videos to come in the future, but we're going to be switching it up a little bit to some other cars in the Rat Cave. We've got an engine sat over there that you might have noticed in some of the background shots, and well, I'll explain what all that's about in another video. And we've got a few other things that we need to finish off. And remember the goal here. We're going to get these cars done, some of these cars done, to sell them for the biggie, which is all coming later in the year. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you all very shortly in the next one. Until then, stay safe and ciao for now.